welcome.
But I was much younger and I knew exactly where I was going to stay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're very happy to have you here today for the United Mutual Meet the Candidates event. I'm Connie Carroll, and I'm going to be your moderator today. And I would also like to acknowledge, of course, Village Television, because we are broadcasting live this entire meeting. So your attendance today is incredibly important, and we also welcome all of the viewers who are watching us as we broadcast live. We know that it's very important in this election, even though there are 4 candidates and 4 seats open, it's still incredibly important to fill out your ballots and to vote. Because in order for this election to happen and to go through without repeating, you need a 15% quorum. So everyone in United does need to get their ballot and fill it out, even if they don't put a vote in it, although we encourage you to do that, and send that ballot in so that we do not ever need to repeat this process. It's incredibly important. But I do want to welcome you all today and to have you meet the organizers of this Meet the Candidates event. We have our volunteers, Janie Durrell and Maggie Blackwell, and they are sitting over to the side. And of course, we need to meet our very own candidates. Our candidates today are Mr. Kash Akrakar, Mr. Manuel Amendares, Mr. Reza Bastani, and Ms. Juanita Skillman. What we'll do today as a part of this meeting is that we will have the candidates give their own prepared introduction. They will tell you a little bit about themselves and answer some of the general ideas and questions about their candidacy. Then we will have a selection of prepared questions. And then, as you have noticed, we've passed around green cards for you to write out your own questions to be collected by Maggie or Janie. Now, your questions, once they're collected, will be reviewed so that we will not have any repeated questions or illegible questions, and the ones that meet the right criteria of not being a repetitive question or illegible will be used in this meeting and will be answered by the candidates. Right now, I would like to invite our candidates to give their opening statements.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are the green cards?
The green cards. They're on your left side
Oh, in the basket.
in the basket. So please feel welcome to fill out a green card, and when you're done, Maggie and Janie will take that question from you. So right now, we're going to open the meeting for our candidates to give their opening statements. And we will begin with Mr. Kash Akrakar.
Thank you very much, Connie. Friends of the United Mutual side of Laguna Woods Village. My name is Kash Akrakar, and all of us live in a 55-plus community, which is one of the best around the world, and it's the only city which has more than 90% people over the age of 55. I bring to our community my experiences in many diverse areas, 30 plus years of volunteering, including HOA, when my community needed a leader to recover from a major landslide when 3 homes slid down the hill. I worked with many echelons. In that event, I became the president of the association and got the city and FEMA involved to stabilize our community of 49 homes. I have been with many echelons of people, from CEOs to blue collars, all through my careers, and I have been recognized for resolving major industrial and social problems throughout my career. My good attitude, hard work, honesty, and fearless pursuit for truth and fairness has always been rewarded. Most of the time has been rewarded, and you saw it for the last year that I'm on board. Last year on BOD, Board of Directors and city volunteers, and Meals on Wheels program has taught me a lot of city and village politics, as well as familiarized with parliamentary procedures to operate and maintain multi-million-dollar communities such as ours. I aspire, God permits, to be the mayor of Laguna Woods. Primary to make our unique community get the tax benefits we deserve and need. We have an infrastructure problems that are 50 years old community. We need close to $100 million. And as a last resort, of course, we come to every individual stockholder, but that is the last resort for me. We need to get the funds because we are a unique community. And nobody has really recognized that. I give myself 6 years to accomplish this goal because it is not easy goal. I got to get every one of our 18,000 people to unite, and combine, and be one, and be heard. And I need your vote, this time for United, next for GRF, and then for City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Akakar. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite for his opening statement at a 3-minute length, Mr. Manuel Armendariz.
Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to be here before you. And my presentation is going to be geared towards getting your vote, because the message that I'm going to give you is intended for you to vote for me so that I know that I have your support and that you have heard my message and that you generally agree with my comments. You've heard my name. I'm a retired California CPA. My education culminated with my obtaining a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from UCLA. I then went on and got my CPA certificate. My first 14 years in the profession were as an auditor for the international firm of Coopers & Lybrand. And I was elevated to the level of audit manager, and I was offered a partnership in the firm, which I turned down. I then had an opportunity to go to work for the Irvine Company. And at the Irvine Company, I was the director of finance. I was also appointed as the treasurer of the Irvine Ranch Water District. I've had many, many jobs since then where I was the chief financial and accounting officer. I've had experience not only just in finance and accounting, but depending on the company, I was responsible for overseeing the property management, and in some cases, even human resources. So I come with a lot of valuable knowledge and experience. And my message to you is that we live in a wonderful community here, but we have our problems. And what I've observed, my first involvement with the management here was when I volunteered to serve in the audit committee. And I started off with a bang. I was well received, my ideas, my comments, and so on. But I ran into a problem as I continued to probe into things, and I was eventually fired from that committee. And I found a lot of wrong things. One of the things that I even saw on the financial statement that I just glanced at this morning was the footnote for reserves. While serving on the committee, I learned that reserves are not accounted for by components the way it seems to imply on the financial statements. It's all thrown into one pot and all spent out of the one pot. So you have reports coming out to the finance committee, to the directors, that aren't based on actual accounting. My time is running out, so the other thing that I'm concerned about is that I have to work with these directors to accomplish what I want to do. And the atmosphere in which we work in needs to be improved on. And we need to consider what the residents want and make that part of our voting process. Thank you very much. I want your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Armendariz. And now I'd like to welcome Mr. Reza Bastani for his opening statement.
My name is Reza Bastani. I'm running for the board of United Mutual. I need your vote also. I'm living in the village for 7 years. My education consists of the following: a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from UK and a postgraduate in industrial management also from UK. My business background mostly consists of engineering work. I've been with URS Corporation as lead instrument electrical engineer, and then with Qatar Petroleum as for 13 years as senior control system engineer. Bechtel Operation in Bakersfield as senior control system engineer. Solon Corporation, a solar company in Van Nuys, California, as installation and maintenance manager. Bechtel Petroleum in San Francisco for 10 years as senior control system engineer, and with NIOC for 7 years as senior maintenance engineer and maintenance manager. In military, I was a communication engineer. In the village, I've been a technical advisor to Architectural Control and Standards Committee. I also like playing table tennis and have attended some art classes. I have 37 years experience in projects in energy industry, such as oil, gas, and solar. The locations stretch from Peru Bay, Alaska to Bakersfield, California, and countries in Middle East. I've been involved in infrastructure development process from conception to completion of various projects. This also includes contract as well as maintenance and management. I hope that this experience can be useful in board's activities. If selected as a member of the board, I believe I can support the activities of the board by providing technical assistance when required. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bastani. And now, at last, we would like to invite Ms. Juanita Skillman for her opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I am Juanita Skillman, and I have lived as a full-time resident in the village for almost 9 years. My business background includes, I am a certified records manager, which is like a CPA in accounting, and I've been a records information manager for both public and private companies, as well as a consultant and a trainer. I have a BA and an MA degree from Western New Mexico University, and I also have a lot of leadership experience in international professional organizations. The Association of Records Managers and Administrators, the Institute of Certified Records Managers, and the ARMA International Education Foundation. And I served in almost all the offices, including president and chairman of the board of those. I've also been a Toastmaster for 35 years and have served in every level, club, division, district in that organization. Within the village, for the last 3 years, I have served on the board of directors. I have been secretary, and I'm currently serving as president. I also serve as a volunteer at the library. I love our village library, and I'm there every Saturday. And I also do books on wheels for the library for shut-ins who can't get to the library. I also serve on the Disaster Preparedness Task Force, which is meeting in another room as we speak today. And I think it's very important for us as we look and see the news of what's happening in Houston and in Louisiana, to know that we have a preparedness task force that we're not going to get the floods, but should a disaster of that kind of thing happen, we are prepared here in the village. We have a wonderful task force and team that is going to help us take care of ourselves. So why am I running again? A lot of people say to serve the village, to give back, and that's true. But you know, it's also for myself. When I retired, I spent about 3 months twiddling my thumbs and said, I can't do this. I need to be active. I need to be involved. And that's when I ran for the board. And I am. I go to all the committee meetings, both GRF and United. I try to keep up with what's going on in Third, and I really believe that we need to work as a community, not just as separate mutuals. So as Connie said, we need everybody to vote to turn your ballot back so that we will have a quorum. And I hope maybe you'll mark my name. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilman. Well, now we have a list of prepared questions, and I'm going to start with one candidate with the first question, and as I continue with the questions, I'll move on to starting with the next candidate in line. But all 4 candidates will have an opportunity to answer these questions within a prescribed time limit. And I'll start with Mr. Akakar. Our first prepared question is, the founders intended that the village to be based on a shared cost concept. What is your understanding and opinion on the shared cost concept?
Interesting question, Corny. Basically, shared cost is we are a big, huge, happy family. And some people like golf, some people like horseback riding, some people like whatever, you know. But every activity costs money. Now, if you talk about like our yacht club, they have a yacht. It costs a lot of money, and we want to split or share the cost so that our part of the community that enjoys certain activity can reasonably afford to do so. It shouldn't be that looked upon as negatively, primarily because there are some activities you want to do that other people don't want to do or don't like to do or don't have time to do because they're busy with other things. My opinion is share cost is good, but it should also at the same time be restricted so that there's not additional burden put on the whole community for sharing certain costs. Like if we have an airplane, we don't want a jet plane, you know. That might cost too much money for the rest of us. So if some people want a jet plane, let them have it. We will split some of the costs, but not all the costs. That's called share cost, and I'm all for it. And that's what makes us a happy community. One of the secrets of long life is happiness and stress-free life. That's why we are here. And that's my goal, because this is my last home and last address until that guy says, come on down or come on up, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Almendarez, what is your understanding of the shared cost concept and your opinion of that?
My answer is going to be slightly different than Cash's. I agree with everything he said on the definition. But my comment and observation is based on the importance of in spending our money on amenities or any costs that involve all of our community here. The board as well as VMS, I feel, need to consider what is best for the majority. And that's my observation that, yes, we have a shared cost concept. We operate on that. We spend the money for the general benefit of all the residents. But I think we need to improve our method for determining how we spend some of the funds that may not be needed for, let's call it cosmetic changes versus necessary costs, because we are an aging community. We are going to continue to have pressures as to how we spend our money. We need to spend it very wisely. And this is the area where I hope to be able to contribute my education, my experience, and my expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bastani, what is your understanding of the shared cost concept and your opinion of it?
My understanding is that shared cost is basically operating and maintenance costs divided by number of people, members, I should say, in the village. And that is my understanding of shared cost. Thank you.
And your opinion of the shared cost concept. Can you elaborate on that for us?
The opinion very similar to what my friend mentioned over here.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Skillman, your understanding of our shared cost concept and your opinion of it.
The shared cost concept was developed by the originators of what used to be Leisure World to basically underwrite all of the different amenities and activities within the village. The shared cost is primarily GRF. We pay for it through our contributions to GRF, but we don't have control over them. We have people who serve on all of the GRF committees that try to give their input on behalf of the village, of the United, for the different elements that have shared cost. And we do have different activities such as golf and the equestrian center, et cetera, where people pay extra to partake in those activities. They're underwritten by GRF and the shared cost, but they are not entirely. Our clubhouses, many of our recreation facilities, et cetera, are supported entirely by the shared cost of GRF. At this time, United pays $200 a month, approximately, to GRF to support our part of the shared cost of all of the different amenities. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that as much as we can, that money is spent wisely and for the benefit of the community.
Thank you. For our second question, I'll begin with Mr. Armendariz. Our second prepared question for the candidates is, why are you running for the board, and why do you feel that you would be a good candidate?
Again, I'm
Sorry,
running
I'm
for
sorry,
the board.
a good director. A good director. You already are a good candidate, a good director, sir.
Me?
All right, as I started to say, I think we've had members on this board that have made their best efforts to deliver what is a good service to our community. But I've only been here a short time, less than 2 years, but I have witnessed and I've observed a lot of residents that don't feel that way. And it's incumbent upon us to always consider the residents first in any decisions we make. We don't have a good process for determining this. We don't go through a survey that we might on major decisions. For example, when we decided that it would be preferable to switch from PCM to VMS, I don't know that a survey was ever made of that. I don't know that that was ever put out to a vote of all the members. That's a major issue. And today, some of the benefits we're getting from PCM is the fact that the boards that decided that were smart enough to realize that if they didn't transfer over all the employees that PCM had and had trained, they would have chaos. So they did that. And whenever you look at a problem that currently arises, it's because they've lost some of these very valuable employees that PCM has. So again, we have to remember why VMS is here and why we as directors have this authority and this responsibility. It's because we are trying to provide the best community possible for the best cost possible. So that's my message there. And I kind of want to leave it with the thought that the atmosphere needs to also change to where we're serving the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bastani, why are you running for the board, and why would you be a good director?
I am running to the board, for the board, because I feel that my 37 years experience in engineering may be valuable to the board in making engineering decision. As was mentioned, we have infrastructure problem, and we have to look ahead for what to do. So I believe I can contribute in technical aspects to the board. That's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Skellman, why are you again running for the board, and why would you be a good director?
I'm running for the board again because I believe, didn't turn my mic on. I'm running for the board again because I believe in the type of governance that we have here in the village. I was very privileged to serve on one of the task forces and committees that worked on the change of management and the setup of village management services, which is ours, instead of paying an outside company to do it. I believe in what they do, and I believe in how we did it. I think that my support on the board for them, for the employees that we have here in the village, is as important as my support of our residents, which is always there. We have almost 18,000 residents. There is no way that we can take a poll or a vote on everything that we do. We are elected to represent them to the best of our ability. And one of the things that we do on the board, and I particularly try to do, is to look at every angle. There's at least 2, sometimes 3 or 4 sides to every issue. And they have to be weighed to see what is the best for the village and what is the best for the majority of the people in the village, not just a small vocal group. I believe that I will be a good director again. I believe I have leadership skills coming from my many years as a volunteer leader on different boards and associations. And I think the experience that I've had in the last 3 years, particularly as a records manager, looking at all of our governing documents, which has been one of my primary focuses, is a really good reason why I should stay on the board.
Thank you. Mr. Akakar, why are you running for the board again, and why would you be a good director?
Well, most of you probably know I am India-born American citizen. I've been in this country, tomorrow it'll make 50 years. Now this is a very good community, and with my experiences in the past, I think I can accomplish to make it even better community, because we have so many needs that need to be met, infrastructure needs especially, which requires hundreds of millions of dollars. Another thing is we need to be one happy family. This is the best, one of the best cities in the world with so many seniors. I mean, 90% plus are 55 and older. Why I'm running for the board? With my 3 master's degrees and Gandhian philosophy that I come from, I think I can put my best foot forward and assist in making our community even better. And that's why I'm running for the board. Also, I don't have any private personal agenda. I am running to make sure that our community runs like a well-oiled machine. We have VMS, the village management system, that we need to supervise, and 11 board members are representing all of you to accomplish that. And I'm proud to be one of the 11 to make the decisions that are the best for us and make sure that my input gets in so that our costs remain within limits and within budgets, and the whole community stays for another 50 to 100 years. Our founders started 52 some years ago, and we are here. But this is not the end. This is, to me, this is just the beginning. And another 10 years or whatever time I have, I want to make sure every day is better than the day before. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next prepared question, I'm going to begin with Mr. Bastani. Mr. Bastani, have you ever participated in or attended any Laguna Woods Village board or committee meetings? And if so, can you tell us about that experience?
Yes, I have attended several board meetings, and what was the question again?
Well, have you ever attended or participated in any board or committee meetings here at Laguna Woods Village? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have also participated in control and architectural committee meetings, and I believe this particular committee has been very active and very useful in standardizing the approach to alterations and maintenance of those alterations and the process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, have you ever attended or participated in any Laguna Woods Village board or committee meetings, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Almost all. I have been a board member for 3 years, and I have never missed a board meeting. I attend almost all the committee meetings, and I have been a member of the Governing Documents Committee. I helped form the Resident Advisory Committee. I've served on Finance, Landscape. I have attended all of the meetings for M&C and Architectural Control, all of the things that we do in the village. On the GRF side, I have represented United on the Community Activities Committee, the Media and Communications Committee, the Landscape Committee, Finance Committee, and the Business Planning Committee. I feel that my background in volunteer leadership, as well as my knowledge of documentation and records, are vital in keeping track of what's going on in the village. And I try to think that I try very hard to make sure that we move ahead instead of moving backwards. This is a time of change, and change is not easy. But we can't stagnate here in our village. We have to move ahead with the times. Sometimes this is difficult, but we have to do it as much as we can, as easily as we can, to accommodate our residents and to make sure that our village is still here many years from now. So all of the different committees, all of the different work that we do within the community, I try to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Akakar, so sorry, have you ever attended or any Laguna Woods board or committee meetings, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I would reply saying which one, because I attend quite a few meetings. I am member of the Architecture Committee meeting. I'm a member of the Disaster Preparedness Task Force meeting, committee. I'm also a member of Security and Community Activity meeting group. And, I attend as many meetings as I can, and I have one major person that supports me. At the same time, she needs some more attention. That's my better half. And occasionally I do miss some meetings, especially because right now she had a little fall and needs some attention. So I have missed 1 or 2 meetings that I should have attended, but I make sure that somebody represents me in these meetings in such instance. Meetings are important because that is where many minds get together to do the right decision for our community. And I generally try not to miss any meeting as much as I can. And in fact, I attend more than what I should really volunteer to attend. But I've said that I have devoted myself to serve the community. So I will attend, and I do attend many, many meetings every week, even on weekends. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Almendarez, have you attended any board or committee meetings, and can you tell us about that?
Yes, I have. I've attended several board meetings. I was even asked to serve as an advisor on the Finance Committee. This was after I was fired from the Audit Committee, okay? I love this question because it gives me an opportunity to express some other views that I have, observations. After I discovered some things that were major concern through serving on the Audit Committee, I made my presentation to the board. And at the conclusion of my, not even the conclusion of my presentation, when my time limit was up, and several days before the meeting, I was told by the chairperson of our committee that I had 5 minutes, but then when I attended the meeting, I was told, no, you only have 3 minutes. So I had to condense. Before I could finish all my remarks, after 3 minutes were up, and this deals again with the atmosphere that the residents feel is prevalent here in our community. Tim Moy, who is considered a very high individual as far as head of security, came over, grabbed me by the arm, literally pushed me off the floor. He shouldn't have touched me. That was bad conduct. When I was fired from the committee, I was accused of harassing staff on VMS. That was a false accusation. I'm not the only one that's been accused of that. There have been other people that are directors that have been accused of that. So VMS has too much power with the director. This is a bad environment under which we're functioning. And I'm hoping by serving on the board that I can change some of this. And I know I need to work with the board. And I don't mean to sound like I'm taking a cavalier tone or approach. No, I mean this in a constructive way. I'm not the only one that thinks this way and feels this way. My son, who is a decorated hero in the Army, had some mistreatment from security. I told him I felt terrible about that. A master sergeant in the Army, a Ranger, decorated veteran, mistreated by security. There have been other instances. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And for our final prepared question, I'll be starting with Ms. Skillman. Ms. Skillman, are you familiar with United Mutual's governing documents and operating rules? And can you briefly tell us which you feel are what are the most important concepts of those rules?
I'd be happy to. The governing documents for United include our Articles of Incorporation, our bylaws, which we just updated, our occupancy agreement that everybody signs when they move into the community, and our operating rules. And those are all the resolutions that are passed at the various board meetings with rules of how the conduct needs to be and things that we need to do and rules that we need to follow. Now, I'm very proud that we did update the bylaws. That was a very important year-long project to bring them up to date because they were so far out of date. They still had us under HUD, which we haven't been for 10 years. They had legal citations that were incorrect that we brought up to date. And there was a lot of legalese. We went from 60 pages down to 20 to try to make it easier for our residents to understand what our bylaws were. Our occupancy agreement is so important. Many people never read the occupancy agreement, which they all get and they all sign when they move into the community. And that is what tells us that we don't own anything. It is all owned by United Mutual, and that we have a reoccurring 3-year lease on our unit to occupy. And so exclusive occupancy of that unit is all that we have. And the 3 years is reoccurring unless something comes up. If there's a really bad disciplinary issue or crime or something, it can be terminated and membership can be pulled. But getting to know those documents is vital, not just for all our board members, but for our members out there as well.
Thank you. Mr. Akakar, are you familiar with United Mutual's governing documents and operating rules? And can you briefly tell us what stands out to you as the most important concepts?
There are many issues that we need to work on, and I agree with Juanita in a couple of things, almost everything she's saying. But primarily, I think we need to make sure our community is safe, as well as our architecture is maintained. And so I would say main activities that should be focused on is to keep our community clear of strange people. So control who lives here. There are so many people that move in and they're not qualified to move in, or they're like VRBOs and places like that. We want to control that. Also, we want to control the architecture so that people don't come in and look at properties that are so far off from standards that it looks like a hodgepodge. So those are the two important things. Also, community activity. is important because we want to make sure our people are here and enjoy different activities for us all. So I would give a preference. First would be architecture, and second would be to keep the properties away from riffraff people, and as well as make sure the security of the whole community is maintained properly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Almendarez, are
Yeah,
you
would you
familiar?
please repeat the question?
Absolutely, sir. Are you familiar with United Mutual's governing documents and operating rules? And can you briefly tell us what your idea of the most important concepts of those rules and operating the documents and rules?
Yes, I am. I can recall when I bought my unit that my realtor said to me, "I've learned a lot from dealing with you. You're the first buyer that I know of that has read every single document and is totally familiar with how the mutuals operate," because I asked a lot of questions. I read a lot of documents. I'm in the process right now of studying the Davis-Sterling Act, under which our governing rules are based on, okay? And again, I want to improve, by my being on the board, I want to improve again the atmosphere, our demeanor. When I served on the audit committee, I was denied payroll information. And what I asked for a listing of all the employees, starting from the general manager all the way down to all levels by department, so that I could compare for the last 2 years what the costs had been under the old PCM, what they were now under VMS. I was denied that information. I also have gotten the impression from talking to other directors that that's kind of you can't touch that area. So I looked up under the Davis-Sterling Act, and every member here has the right to those records. The association may not withhold, this is under Davis-Sterling, may not withhold or redact information concerning the compensation paid to employees, vendors, or contractors. Compensation information for individual employees shall be set forth by job classification or title, okay? Not employee name. You don't need the employee name. You can compare this information if you're provided. It's valuable information for the board to make decisions on how they are spending the money. And, is VMS running us versus us running them, okay? The directors have a direct responsibility to the members. That's where they get their authority. So that's my feeling on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bastani, are you familiar with United Mutual's governing documents and operating rules? And what are some of the key concepts that stand out to you?
Most of the governing documents are based on Davis-Sterling law. So basically, that is what defines the governing documents of United. And on one issue, I was interested to look at this exclusive use of limited common property. I'm stressing the word limited as opposed to common property. Limited common property, my understanding, is those areas that is around the unit that can only be used by the unit member of or the neighbors, if 3 of them, for example, like an apartment, share the same area. I think the resolution which was passed is a little bit stringent. I would like to see that has been relaxed a little. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes our prepared questions, and now we will be presenting the questions that were asked by you, our attendees. The way I'll do this is I'll read from the green cards that you all have filled out, and I will open the question when it is a general question addressed to any one of the candidates. I'll open the question to the candidate who would like to begin answering the question first. And if there is anyone who wants to add to or continue with their answer to that question, another candidate may do so. And that's how we'll proceed with these next 10 or so audience questions, attendee questions. The first of these questions, and feel free to just let me know who would like to start answering this first. What are the unique characteristics that differ United Mutual from 3rd and 50? Would anyone like to begin? Yes, Ms. Skillman.
We are a co-op. They are not. Co-ops are very distinctive. Co-ops have special rules. We don't have CC&Rs. They do. We don't own our units. They do. So there are very different rules that have to be for them that are for us. Now, yes, there are some community rules that we all follow, traffic rules, things like that. But when it comes to our individual mutual, we are a co-op, and we are very different and have to follow the co-op rules, which is collective management. And I think it's important that everybody understand when they move in here that there is a difference between a co-op and a condo, and ne'er the twain shall meet.
Thank you. I open the question to Mr. Ashkakar.
I agree with what Vanita is saying, except that third is individually owned condos, and they have different rules, but they are still part of our family. And we have to make sure that we all have a good community. Co-ops, we don't own and we lease our space, but that shouldn't scare anybody away, because that lease is really helping us if someone is not straight and creates some problems in the community, that's our checkpoint, so we can remove that particular person. But otherwise, the lease is automatically renewed every 3-year period. Another advantage we have is the United being a community-owned property. We make sure that it is maintained properly. Third, each one is a individual owner, and there could be more policing in that area, which I have not looked into, but it could be in that there are 6,000 different views in that community. Here we don't have that freedom, in the sense, if you want to put a cabinet in your home, in the wall, then you have to call United and make sure it is done up to code. Outside, if you want to paint a different colored door or put a window, we have to make sure it is not out of the code. And I'm pretty sure Third has some rules, but I don't believe they're that strict like we have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Armendariz.
Yes, on this topic, the comments I'd like to add are that, yes, there are differences between the two. And the two main ones really, because as far as managing, as far as responsibilities and so on, they're very similar. But the two main ones is the legal ownership. Yes, in a co-op, you do not own your unit. You only own a share in the corporation, and that only entitles you to the use of that property through a lease agreement that you first begin when you purchase your unit, and then it automatically renews every 3 years. With a condo, you don't have that. Of course, you own your unit. And then there are other responsibilities, such as if you want to remodel your co-op, you have to go through a lengthy process of getting approval and permission from the association. With a condo, you still have to do that with certain types of improvements. I don't know if you have to do that with all of them. Another thing that I think a lot of residents don't realize is that, for example, when they decided to install the gate system across the street, gates 5 and 6, and I don't know who really has responsibility for that, because security falls under GRF. I don't know if United or Third or they both decided to do that. But the front end of Gate 5, those are all co-ops, so they fall under the United's responsibility. The back end of it, through Gate 6, those are condos, and that falls under Gate Third Mutual. When I was on the audit committee, I asked questions like that. Well, who paid for it? Who's responsible for it? I never got a straight answer on that. I was on the audit committee. I should know those things. I should be able to get those answers. We have things like that that need to be fixed, and the financial records are a major part of it. I could give you an example right here that I'm looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other candidates,
In addition to what was said, I would like to stress one other point as well. For any alteration in co-op, you need to, by law, you need to get board's approval, or 67% of the resident has to vote for it. In Third Mutual, they go to a few members around, and they get that done, which is much faster. And I personally like the fact that you don't have to go to 67% or board approval for small alterations. That's all. Thank you.
thank you. That last answer was given by candidate Bastani. We'll move on to our next attendee question. This question is general for all candidates. What do you consider to be the top 3 problems or issues in United Mutual, and what are your positions on those 3 issues? Would anyone like to begin answering that question?
I'll be happy to. I was just waiting for somebody else. Go ahead, Cash.
All right, Mr. Akakar.
I want to add to yours.
The 3 main issues I would say is, first is infrastructure. We need to make sure our infrastructure stays in good shape for another umpteen years, or the dream that our founder started will slowly collapse. Now, that is the top issue, and that needs a lot of funds. And how to raise those funds is the second issue, and we need to do that. The last resort is to bump up our association fees, but I don't like that alternative. Another big issue we have is there are too many, we have 18,000 people in the whole community, and 18,000 minds that have been around for so many years, and we are at a retirement age, and they all think a little bit differently. So we have to make one solid, one big happy family. That's the other issue. We got to make sure that we live in peace and harmony. So the 3 issues is to maintain the community, to maintain the people's attitudes and how they behave, and of course, how do we make our lives stress-free and at affordable costs? So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Almendarez, did you wish to answer that question, or what do you feel
Yes.
are the top 3 issues, and how would you
I like
resolve
what
them?
Cash had to say about it, and I'd like to add these additional comments. It's pretty well recognized that senior people have 2 major concerns. The first one is their health, and the second one is their financial resources and the concern about outliving those resources. People have a longer lifespan now. We have that existing right here in our village. That's why we have Meals on Wheels. That's why we have our social services. And I first became aware of Leisure World when Ross Cortese first started that development, because I was working at the Irvine Company at the time. And around here, all were orange groves, okay? And he was in it for a profit. He had developments elsewhere outside of the state. So his concern wasn't the same concerns we have. So what I'm leading up to is the fact that the assessments that a member had to pay back then, have gone from maybe $100, $150 a month to now $700. And if you buy a current unit and you pay $400,000, $500,000 for it, then you're facing a property tax bill that adds another $400 or $500 per month, unless you get the benefit of Prop 50 and 90 and 13. A lot of people aren't familiar with that. So I guess the main three things are, first, that we serve our residents. Second, that we use our money wisely. And third, like Cash said, that create an atmosphere here where we feel like VMS is working for us and the directors are working for us, not the other way around. Yes, many of our residents don't know the rules and regulations, and the driving can drive you crazy around here. But that's what we live under. So we got to do the best job we can to serve our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to answer the question? Yes, Ms. Skillman.
I have to agree that probably our number one issue right now is infrastructure. This issue has been kicked down the road for too many years by boards who didn't want to take responsibility for it, and they band-aided it, and they painted over it. And that's what we're seeing now, where we have some very major issues with our wastewater collection, with our plumbing and electrical issues, these kinds of things. This board has taken those on and are going to work at solving them. Secondly, I think that it's very important that the people in this community realize that communication is a two-way street. Every candidate says we've got to have better communication, we need transparency, but it's not a one-way. I feel that the boards and VMS, our staff, has gone way beyond what we ever had. And we have so many means of communication right now. But as the old saying says, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And if they don't watch television, if they don't read the Globe, if they don't get the Breeze email, if they don't get the blasts every Friday of what's going on in the village, if they don't look at things in the clubhouses, then there's no way that we can continue that communication. We can't go out, knock on every door, and talk to every individual one. Their responsibility, just as ours is good communication.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bastani, would you also like to add an answer?
Yeah, in addition to what was said, I'd like to stress one other point. I believe the management of security needs a review. The response is not adequate. In a board meeting recently, one person had a problem with his upstairs neighbor, and they had come down and they have vandalized his car several times, and they've painted it, etc. And they've called security. Security didn't appear to protect the property. They only come 2 hours later to write a report and send it to compliance department. I believe the first job of security is to secure the life and also the property of the members. And they should concentrate on that first, not to sit and hide behind the bushes and give tickets to people for minor alterations and minor, stop sign, etc. In addition to that, I personally had a problem about a few weeks ago. I have the date and time. I had somebody at my place and she fell down, and it wasn't too bad. She didn't want to go to emergency because she didn't have the medical, and medical insurance. So I called a friend of mine to help me lift her. And I called security to let them come down. And for 3/4 of an hour, I was calling, I have the date and time, and nobody answered in gate clearance. So I called security 3 times because I'm told that if they don't come, you have to call security. They hang up on me 3 times. And eventually one buddy said, we have emergency. I mean, if they, with one emergency, they shut down the whole operation, that means there is a problem there. And this has got to be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A next question from our attendees is a general question to all candidates. The question is, as the board is making decisions, working for the residents and with our money and based upon previous board decisions, expenditures, and operational decisions behind closed doors, how would you, as a new board member, change the closed door policy to allow the residents to participate in those decision-making procedures? Anyone like to begin their answers? Mr. Akrakar.
We don't have everything closed door. We have open door policy, really. Some closed door activity is kind of personal for people we are working with at that time, like someone makes a wrong use of the property or has tenants where they're not supposed to and do things that are not on the bylaws or against the bylaws. Those are kind of personal issues. Those are not disclosed to everybody because we don't want to demean anybody. But everything is open. If you have any problems or any requirement or any interest in finding out what is going on, we all are here to help. And again, what Manny is talking about, I think our VMS is doing an excellent job. And we as a board, we are controlling them. We are not supposed to do the work ourselves, but to make sure that the work is done properly, and that's what we are doing. Maybe Manny has some issues that I don't know about yet because I've been on the board only for like 8-9 months out of my 17 months or so in this community. But I will definitely look into what he has to say, and with his help and advice, I think in the areas that he's expert, we will even make a better community, and I'm looking forward to that. So don't think we have a closed door policy. It is not. We are transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Almendarez.
Yes, thank you. Well, my experience with the closed door policy is that I was asked to be sure to sign up for an opening for a directorship. I was also asked to serve on the advisory as an advisor for the Finance Committee. And so I attended a meeting, and we discussed basically the meeting, the way it is run is that in that particular committee, as the CFO presents a report to the committee. And I know one of the persons there is a director, and then he raised some questions about concerns he had about how far out of line the wages paid for union employees was. Well, they didn't give him a very good answer. He kept asking. They didn't, and basically what it came down to is we've got a contract and that's going for another 3 years. Well, the answer that I would have expected was, because I've had experience in this area, was that yes, those costs are out of line. And yes, we are going to look at a program that we're going to start a year before that contract is up and see how we can replace those union employees. I've got a little something here I want to read that was in the breeze. And it says, our preliminary review of the GRF United Third budget showed approximately a $5 million increase in expense of the community. $2 million of that is for 18 employees of new personnel. Okay, these are not department heads or anything like that. And then another $1 million is for payroll and payroll-related costs. I would imagine these are things that are probably discussed in these closed sessions, because at the conclusion of that finance meeting, I was still sitting there, and I was asked to leave. And I said, well, why? I said, yeah, I think you're still going to conduct some business. No, this is for the closed session. I mean, here I'm an expert in the field. I'm an advisor. I was shut out. And the $2 million, the $1 million talked about, those equate to $111,000 a year for salaries, $50,000 for payroll costs. I mean, who are we hiring?
Mr. Almendarez, your time is up. Would anyone else like to answer the question? Yes, Ms. Gilman.
Well, I haven't
I'm sorry, Mr. Bastani. Yes.
I haven't had any experience in this particular open and closed door policy, so I don't have any comment on this issue.
And Ms. Skillman.
Thank you. We are a very open community. People don't realize, just as I mentioned with communication, that in order to have input over what's going on in the community, they need to show up. Every single thing that we do is hashed out in committee. And the committees take months sometimes looking at both sides, getting consultant reports, getting reports on, from different staff members, et cetera, before they vote to send it to the board for final approval. When it comes to the board, it has a first reading, and then it goes out to the members for a 30-day comment period. That's when they can come back and say what they think, what they want, whatever, what they like or dislike about it, before it is ever voted on by the board. Do we have closed sessions? Yes. But closed sessions are legal matters, personnel matters, things that are not by law allowed to be in open session. I also want to point out that we have a resident advisory committee. And this is a committee that meets the second Thursday of every month, where residents can come in and talk. No 3-minute legal limit. They can express their views, they can ask their questions. It's a time when we can help direct them to the correct staff or department or whatever, or sometimes just listen to them, which we do. So it's a very open procedure.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next attendee question is a general question to all candidates. What is your experience with Robert's Rules of Order? Who would like to begin? What is your experience with Robert's Rules of Order? Yes, Ms. Skillman.
I'm a 37-year Toastmaster, and we are very well versed in Robert's Rules of Order. I have taken many classes in it. I have gotten certifications in it, and I try very hard in all of our board members, board meetings and committee meetings to follow Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order is different for committees than it is for boards. They're not the same exact rules, and we try very hard to educate all of our board members on it. We have orientation training class at the beginning of every term where we go over what Robert's Rules of Order are and what the different things mean so that hopefully they are well versed in it too. So yes, in our bylaws, in our law, it says that we follow them, and we do.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Akakar.
Well, Robert was smart to be the first one to come up and say that in order to avoid chaos, there should be some basic rules. And that's my understanding of Robert's rule. I've used them, but I haven't used them as stringently as Juanita has, and I haven't been a Toastmaster or been in that kind of field for 35 years. But I do know that they are a basic start to maintain peace and to maintain some uniformity in every meeting and every discussion when more than one person or 3 or 4 people meet. And they're good to start with, and it's a good book. I don't go to bed with it to sleep, but one should know about it. And I do know enough of it to refer to sometimes when I need to. And that's what I use Robert's rules for. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Armendariz.
I know what they are. I have not operated under them. I know when I was taking some courses on presentations to groups and speech that we were educated, but I have not currently used them. And I have a question for the board here that I think is probably more important than knowledge about that. And that's the voting process. I've been studying, again, the Davis-Sterling Act. It provides that you have directors that are appointed, voted on and elected by the members. And I attended a directors meeting at one time. And according to the Davis Sterling Act, you have officers and you have directors. And officers do not have the same powers as directors do. And at that meeting that I attended, a subject came up for vote. And I remember the director pointing out to the president, at that, he's no longer the president of United, he voted on an issue and he was corrected by the director, but that was ignored. So to me, being familiar with the Davis Sterling Act, following other procedures, to me, are far more important than being knowledgeable on Robert's Rules of Orders. So that's what I can add.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman.
I'd like to make two more comments. First of all, officers are directors. We are not different, we are directors.
That's not what the
And
act says.
the, yes, it is. And in Robert's rules and our, it all says that the president may vote if they wish on an issue. We have an 11-member board. Usually, the president only votes to break a tie if it's 5-5. If it's an issue that they are especially passionate about, they can and do vote. But when you see them not voting, it's just because they usually only vote to do a tie. And I'd like to let all of our members know that we have a Robert's Rules of Order study group. And it meets consistently at the Towers 2 times a month. Second Saturday of the month. And if any of you are interested in boning up on Robert's Rules of Order, you might want to join that study group.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. And we do also invite the Roberts Rules Study Group to Village Television, and they occasionally come and tell us about some of the Roberts Rules, and we get the benefit of their visit. Mr. Bastani, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't have anything to add to what was said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next attendee question is actually directed to you, Mr. Bastani, as the first respondent to this question. What are the changes you would like to make as a new board member? This question is to Mr. Bastani first, and then, of course, anyone else who would like to answer the question. What are the changes you would like to make as a new board member?
I would like to see that the alteration process is reviewed, and if possible, is being relaxed a little. Because with some little things, like adding a vanity, when you're using the same plumbing and electrical, it's just the furniture you want to put there and connect it. They want to be licensed. I mean, this is expensive to get a contractor to be licensed, to come over and just sign up something that is not required. I want to see that that alteration process is reviewed, and if agreed, is relaxed a little. Also, I want to see the financial requirements of buying a unit to be reviewed. I believe that this present regulation that states you have to have enough equivalent to the cost of the unit that you're buying plus $125,000 is a little bit too much. I don't see the reason behind this. I want to see this also reviewed. And finally, what is in technical area, I believe that as-built drawings is very important for alteration. As-built drawing, for those who don't know, is after construction, the changes during the construction, when they are included, it is the drawing is called as-built. Basically, it's shorthand for as it was built. So we have a problem with these things, and I like to see those. I like to make proposal to see those that can be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, is there anyone else that would like to address this question? What are the changes you would like to make as a new board member? Mr. Akakar.
I'd like to, one thing definitely is to reduce the number of meetings if possible, primarily because we tie up our staff time because they have to be involved. I had one opportunity to do so, and basically we had problems or questions raised about our parking issues. So I said, hey, instead of making another committee or another meeting agenda, not increase the time of people. We had I organized few volunteers, including Maxine, who's walking back there, and we determined whether or not we do have this problem throughout the community or not. And we ended up finding that the problem was in only a few areas. And we are trying to get those areas corrected. But that saved a lot of time and a lot of aggravation for rest of the community who didn't need to be involved with that. Or one less meeting for me and other people. So that's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Almendarez?
Thank you. I guess some of the changes that I would like to see be made are based on 4 committees that I hope to serve on. The first one, of course, is the Finance Committee. The next one is the Architectural Committee. Third one is Landscape Committee, and the fourth one is Construction and Maintenance. And the changes that I would like to hope to initiate is that VMS is providing adequate information to us for financial decisions that we make. And, you know, based on what I've found through an audit of the financial statements, and those are supposed to be pretty reliable, okay? I don't know if the information that is given to the members of the Finance Committee is integrated properly with the financial statements. I know errors are issued in a statement like this that's supposed to be golden. I will give you just one example. I was asked by the head of the Finance Committee to meet with her later after I had reviewed all this, and I finally didn't do it. I thought, well, what's the point? But in the notes of the financial statement, this is the United Laguna was dealing with replacement reserves, a very hot issue. And in there, they give you a breakdown by major components, so it implies that they're accounting for these costs by major components. They do not. It all goes into one pot. And so then they do calculations, and these are just calculated numbers in here. Here's a major mistake in here. This has to be wrong. And for tree maintenance, there's 3 columns. The first column is the estimated current replacement cost. That's the total cost. The second column is what has been calculated to be the needed reserve cumulative to this point. And the third column is what is actually available in reserves, okay? Here's the financial statement that says for tree maintenance.
Mr. Almendarez,
The first column,
I'm sorry to
97,000.
say
The
that your
second,
time is up, sir.
1,000,003.
Your
The last
time
column,
is up,
5,000.
sir.
It's wrong,
Robert's rules.
okay? I'm sorry, it's wrong.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, did you want to address this question? What changes would you like to make as a new board member?
Well, first of all, I hope not to be a new board member. I hope to be a returning board member. And certainly we have lots of things to do, and I think our main issues, as we've talked about, is infrastructure. And yes, we need to figure out financing for that infrastructure. I take exception to some of the things that Mr. Almendarez has said about our financial statements. Yes, we do have reserves, and our reserves are categorized by the different things that they are in reserve for. We are in this next budget, we are taking a little bit of what we normally put in our contingency fund and putting it in our reserve fund to beef that up a little, because we know this is a very important issue. I wholly and totally support our staff and VMS. I think they have done a fantastic job in the 1.5 years that they have been here. Do we have some financial issues? Yes. We have a new financial system, AX, that is still being worked on, is still being integrated with all of our many different legacy systems. We have not been able to, at this time, finish all of that out. But they're working on it, and they're getting it done. And the reports that we are getting, I can tell you, having been on here for 3 years, the reports that we are getting now are so far superior to what we had 2 years ago that there's just no comparison.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. This next attendee question is directed just to Mr. Akrakar. The first portion is a statement, and the last portion is a question. Mr. Akrakar, your concern of tax distribution is related to the city, not directly with the village. The question is, are you going to stay on the United Board for another 3 years?
Good question. I was already asked to go on city council, but I said, no, this is not the time. I am going to stay on United Board for at least 1 or 2 years, for sure. Why I'm going through city is because the money that we will get from federal or state level has to come through the city. City right now is not happy with the funding they get, and they get only like 0.8 of 1 cent per dollar of our property taxes. And I think that is not fair, but there is laws against trying to use that fund for us. And that's why I need 6 years of my time to put into that, because it'll take that long to get our community to become one and one voice. Then we can make that decision or make that happen by taking state, saying, hey, we are a community that's totally unique in the world. So, you know, the only city with so many 55 plus residents, so let's get some benefits. Now, we don't have any taxes, any schools, and part of our taxes are supposed to go to school according to the rules. But where are they going to? Not for us. That's what I'm getting at. That's why you will see me more at the city level as well. I volunteer my time at city just to get to know people there and to have my foot in the door at the appropriate time. But I will stay with United for at least a year or two for sure. I just refuse to go with GRF new elections because I think it's a little bit too early for me. I am here only for like 16, 17 months, and I need to know this portion of the community better before I start to bite, and I have to learn to chew. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This next question is directed solely to Mr. Almendarez. It's a two-part question. The first part is, how would you correct the atmosphere you said was negative? The second part is, could you go into more detail about why you think the reserves are not set up correctly?
Okay. As far as the atmosphere, all I can do is try to influence the board members and try to see it from the residents' point of view. Yes, yeah, they don't read the documents. They unfortunately aren't familiar with a lot of the rules and regulations. I mean, that still doesn't support the atmosphere that prevails. And my personal experience, like I said, on how I was treated by security, how my son was treated by security, it's part of the atmosphere. So we have to change the atmosphere. I have to work with the board, and I have to convince them of some of these things. And let them recognize that I know they're doing a fine job and all these issues, but this atmosphere exists. We need to change that. VMS, at the top of my mind, they operate from a position of power, not from a position that they are there to provide service to the residents. I know many residents that feel the same way that I do. So again, we have to work with them. I have, not personally met Mr. Hudson. I did not have my only encounter with Tim Moy was not good. My son has not had a good one with security. These need to be worked on. That's all I'm saying. We need to take, I think, a different approach, a different attitude. On the second thing about accounting, You know, I beg to differ with Juanita, and I just want to add one thing on my earlier comment. When I said major issues like changing from PCM to VMS, no, I don't mean that every issue. I'm talking about major issues like the change in that management. That's all I was suggesting. As far as the accounting, I can give you several. The main one, again, is the one I was getting at here on reserve.
I'm sorry, sir, your time is
That's
up.
right.
This is a general question to all candidates from an attendee. The question is, in addition to your involvement in the United Mutual committees, do you believe you would want to attend GRF committee meetings also? Why or why not? Ms. Gilman.
Absolutely, and I do. Because if we are not aware of what's going on within our community, and we support GRF financially, and we also serve on various GRF committees. Every GRF committee is made up of 3 GRF members, 2 United members, 2 third members, and 1 from the towers. So we do have input, but if you don't go and you don't partake of those meetings, you don't know what's going on at the ground level. And that's what's so important. It's not just when it finally comes to the board and what you might see on television. All the work has already been done. And if you're not a part of that, if you don't go and understand it and give your views, which I do all the time, then you really can't be a part of it. So it's important that we concentrate on United, but we need to know what GRF is doing, and we need to put our input in there because we are corporate members. The corporate members elect GRF. The corporate members are the directors of each of the mutuals. And so it's important that we know what we're voting for.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to add to that answer? In addition to your involvement in the United Mutual committees, do you wish you would you like to attend GRF meetings, and why or why not would you do so? Yes, Mr. Akakar.
GRF is our people who manage our funds, so we have to keep a watch on them as well. And we do elect GRF members from both Third as well as United as well as the Towers. And they spend beaucoup bucks, like $200 of your, approximately $200 every month of your money for general maintenance and upkeep of our clubhouses or golf course, you name it, everything. So yes, I do attend GRF meetings, but if I have some other activity like taking my wife to the doctor or to her therapy, then I cannot. And then those are the meetings I kind of try to get the information later down. And if I have any questions, I do go and approach their members and find out why did you do this way, or why didn't you consider that, or whatever questions I have, I get them answered. And oftentimes I'm heard and corrections maybe are made. So yes, GRF is an important function. What I see, like every meeting I come to in this boardroom, we are 8, 9 people behind this podium and about 8 or 9 people sitting on the other side. That should change. We need to get every seat occupied. We need our community involvement to the best if we want to do our community as one of the top communities in the world. So everybody out there on the TV, make sure next time you look up the calendar and come down and occupy one of these seats and enjoy this beautiful clubhouse, beautiful boardroom, and all our facilities. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would the other candidates like to address this?
Yes, I totally agree with, and I'm happy to hear what Juanita has to say and what Cash have to say. I totally agree. But in spite of what they say, GRF has their own agenda. And these things that, yeah, you can attend meetings, you can try to influence them on the ground floor, but they basically are acting independent. And I know from experience that they have cost the community a lot of money, okay? On attorney's fees, on illegally or improperly trying to get rid of certain directors. And not only did it cost us attorney fees on GRF's side, but then we had to reimburse the misfired directors and pay their attorney's fees. I used to be with a company that developed Aliso Viejo Golf Course. I know this is all past history, but it can continue. And they sold that land to, that was behind the maintenance area, to our company for a song. Okay, at the time, you know, yeah, my mother-in-law lived here, but I didn't have a conflict of interest, and my boss was a good negotiator. You know, it's knowing things like that that have occurred where we've had mismanagement, and a lot of these complaints that residents have, they're really not united. It's GRF. They don't understand that GRF is responsible for the maintenance and the costs and the improvements, such as a new clubhouse, such as the proposed improvement of the Performing Arts Center and so on. It's not united, yes, on our part. They're also responsible for at least the Aliso Creek, you know. So, yes, these are good things that Cash is saying and that Juanita is saying, but it's like the residents feel powerless with United. They
Your
also
time
feel
is up,
powerless with
sir.
GRF. Thank
Your
you.
time is up. Mr. Bastani, do you care to address that question? Would you attend GRF meetings? Why or why not?
No, I have not attended, and I don't have anything else to add to what was said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next attendee question is also a general question. It is, why do we need to cancel the help of grantors to buy a manor? Would anyone like to start? Guarantors. Sorry.
Say that again?
Why would we need to cancel the help of guarantors to buy a manor? Ms. Gilman.
Well, first of all, that decision has not been made. We do still have guarantors. And if anything, we're looking at just tightening up on the guarantors. We have in this community commercial guarantors who guarantee multiple properties for residents buying in, that if something were to happen to them, we would be up a creek. It really doesn't work. So we have two kinds of guarantors. You've got familiar family guarantors, and then you have the commercial guarantors. And we've been looking stringently at particularly the commercial guarantors because they really do not help our community. We are a owner-occupied community, and we do have to have standards as to who can and cannot buy a share to occupy in our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Would another, Mr. Akakar?
What Vanita says is true, but we are looking at a senior community here, and sometimes the parents don't have sufficient funds in the savings accounts, but their guarantor, their children, their relatives, whatever, can guarantee that. But the main point we are talking about is we don't want parents to come in and live here and be a burden on our social services. So that's where we restrict and make sure that they have sufficient income to live day-to-day life and enjoy the community. So that's where the restrictions are. And commercial, again, like Juanita says, if they bail out, like even the AIG bailed out one time, we have no recourse. And we don't want foreclosures, and we don't want unhappy groups and chaos in the community. So we make sure we avoid or keep that in control. And my job is to come in and make sure that we do that. And we don't necessarily raise our standards, like income standard 36,000 to 45,000, like recommended, or things like that I'm talking about, where I can put my input and my 2 cents to make sure that our community is maintained properly and adequately without too much burden on senior population. So it's a good idea to have guarantors, But it's also a very good idea to keep control on the guarantors and the people coming in, and that's where we come in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would another candidate like to address the question? All right. Mr. Bastani? Nothing. Thank you. Our next attendee question is directed only to Mr. Armendariz. The question is, do you feel the security of the community is strengthened by the headlight decal and the new gate system? Yes, sir. That is only to you.
Well, yes, I do think it is. But however, I am not in favor of the gate system. And why am I not in favor of the gate system? Because we have tremendous pressures and needs for the use of our money on more important things than that. Our village here is either in the top 5 or the top 10 safest cities in southern Orange County, in California, in the United States, probably in the whole world, okay? We have major risks out there in other countries, okay? So we do not need a gate system. My last job was as controller down at Dana Point Marina, and even though we had developed it through Beecham Realty, it was under the ground lease, so all those developments down there are owned by the County of Orange. They insisted we put in a gate system, so we did. It was at their cost, so we didn't have to worry about it. This is not at somebody else's cost, our cost. We had nothing but problems, and so I retired, so I left there. So I know there were major problems. We've spent millions of dollars already on the entrance to Gate 1, Gate 5, and it's not going to add. There's a misconception out there with a lot of residents as to what benefit we're going to get from that. And, I don't think we're going to get our money's worth from that. So that's how I feel about security, and I hope that you people out there are hearing my message, you agree with me, and you vote for me. These are important issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our last attendee question is directed only to Mr. Bastani. The question is, sir, while living in the United Kingdom, did you have any board of director experience there? Were you on a board of directors in the United Kingdom?
No, I was studying there for 8 years, so I wasn't working in United Kingdom. I went to university there and I graduated, and after graduation I left UK. So I don't have any board experience in UK.
Thank you, sir. All right.
No,
we,
it's not.
we do have one more question from an attendee. The question is, a general question, would you ask GRF candidates to not vote to close Clubhouse 3 billiards room, used 7 days a week, to another rehearsal room used once or twice a week? And should a GRF member be expected to not vote because he or she is part of Old Pros, etc.? Anyone like to address that question? Yes, Ms. Gilman.
I'll give it a try. Tony, the redoing of the Performing Arts Center is something that is in progress. No decisions have been made as to what they will cut out, what they won't, what they will put in. We still have consultants that are looking at it. The big thing is it was decided this would be a performing arts center. We have many other clubhouses. I know GRF there are other billiard rooms. I know you don't feel that they're as good. Maybe they need to be expanded, strengthened, whatever, if the consultants decide that that room needs to be used for something else. This is not a decision against the billiard players. It's a decision, when it's made, as to what the best use is of our Performing Arts Center.
Thank you, ma'am. Would another candidate like to address the question? All right. We've come to the portion of our Meet the Candidates event where our candidates now will give a concluding statement. They each have 2 minutes, And we began the session with Mr. Ekakar, but we're going to finalize the session beginning with Ms. Gilman with her concluding statements. Ms. Gilman.
Thank you, Connie. I am running for a second term on the board because I feel that I have something to offer. I feel that I can do a good job. I have communication and good cooperation with the other associations, GRF, Third, even the towers. And I feel like I can work well with all of those. And I think as a community, that's what we need to do. We need to take care of our own mutual, but we also are part of a community, and we need to work with all of those. I understand the problems that we face within United, and I believe that with good financial oversight and with forward thinking, such as our solar project, we will be able to meet those commitments and the problems, concerns that we have for the infrastructure for our community. I want to protect and ensure the future of our community, our United Mutual and our community, and that's why I hope everybody will vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Mr. Bastani, your concluding statements?
Well, in the question and answers that went through, I covered everything I had written as my closing statement, so I will repeat it again. I'd like to work in the following areas. One is to relax the exclusive use of common property resolution so that members can enjoy more amenities. I stressed the word limited common property before. Limited common property is the area around the unit that the unit member and or neighbors can only share. So giving them a better, more relaxed resolution so they can enjoy more amenities, I think is a good idea. So I will support that. I would also like to propose and review and simplify the alteration process, as I explained, such as the vanity, etc. before. I will also work to reduce financial management requirement for buying a unit. I understand what Cash said about the fact that we don't want somebody to come in here and be a burden, but I don't see how they can be a burden. I mean, what's got to do with the buying of the unit anyway? Yes, I mean, in certain cases, you have to raise the money so that the buyer has to borrow money for only a few months and then take it away. So I don't see how it can help. And as I said, I'd like to propose
Thank you,
something
Mr.
to as with the
Bastani.
drawings.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye.
Mr. Almendarez, your concluding statements?
Yes, thank you. I need your vote because when they tally the numbers, that's the only way I'm going to know that I have your support and that you agree with many of my observations and my comments. And yes, I like some of the responses that my soon-to-be fellow directors have given you. Some of them have been very good. But I'm sorry, but the comment that these accounting records are accurate, they're reliable, and all that, that's a big fallacy. And I'm hoping that when we conclude this presentation that I can just show the directors a major mistake on these financial statements that they released. I know a lot of residents called the president and were concerned about why did we have an $800,000 loss on this last year's results. And so she went to the CFO again, Betty Parker. And Betty Parker, she's a smart lady. She came back some double talking about, no, we didn't have a loss. And bottom line is that the reason, regardless of what accounting treatments you use, the association spent $860,000, whatever the number is, in excess of money they took in. Where did the money come from? It comes from members' assessments. $110 million is collected every year through all three associations. And 50% of that amount is spent just on wages, okay? These financial statements, the accounting systems, they've got errors. They got problems with their systems. So that's what I bring to the table. I have expertise in these areas. Not only do we need to change the atmosphere, but also I want to leave this board with a legacy that we had happy residents. They feel
Thank you,
we
sir.
performed a service
Your
at a good
time is
cost.
up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Almendarez. Mr. Akakar, your closing statements.
Before I get into the opening, closing statement, I would like to ask every one of the United residents to send that ballot signed properly, either vote for one or two or three or all four candidates. But please send your ballots back because we need the quorum. If we don't, then we'll have to go through this whole process again and spend some more of our money. Now, to get into my closing statement, basically, I need your support, even from the people right now from the United Mutual folks, but in the future, also from the Third Mutual and the 50 Mutual folks, because we need to make our town as one of the most unique towns in the world, and we need to be recognized as one of the unique towns in the world. We have been on different countries talked about, but we don't see the return or recognition that we need in the country, in our country. Basically, I bring to you my knowledge of experience of over 40 years, 3 master's degrees, and communication skills and hard work. And I want to keep on doing that because this is my last resort, a place to live, last home in this world. And I'm giving myself at least 6 years if that guy up there lets me, but I would like your vote now from the United people and in the future from every one of you as I go for GRF maybe and even for the city council. Thank you so much. And I will have many things to accomplish and not one single day goes by without me trying to see what can I do to make our community better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to, in conclusion, thank all of our candidates for their remarks, their answers, and their insight. And thank you. Yes, give them a hand. And I'd like to thank our attendees as well for your good counsel and your questions and the excellent meeting that you've allowed us to have. And to everyone watching this broadcast, that you also get involved and become a part of this process. We do need your ballots filled out. We need them signed correctly and returned in order to meet our quorum, sir.
I'm
so
Tony
sorry.
Dower. I'm declaring a write-in
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Thank you. We do need you to fill out your ballots, please, so that we can meet our quorum, so that we can complete this process and not have to repeat it. Please do that and send your ballot in with the correct signature with 1, 2, 3, 4 candidates voted for, even no candidates voted for. Just send the ballot back in. Thank you for your help today and for your attendance. Thank you. We've concluded our meeting.